Welcome back, everybody, to the Git Guud guide series for Project Zomboid. This is part 5, and today we're going to be talking about helicopter events and Horde Management. Hello everyone, this is Kevin, and we're back again with another guide on Project Zomboid. The first part of this video will be covering helicopter events and how to deal with them, and the hordes that follow. This should also help you deal with hordes formed by idle rallying and meta events. Hopefully by the end of this video, you'll be able to manage larger groups of zombies. So let's not waste any more time and move into our first subject. So you just started a new save. You spawned in Muldra, and you found a lot of great loot, so nothing could go wrong, right? Wrong. 7 days into your game, you're just swinging your axe at a tree when all of a sudden Kevin Costner flies a stupid helicopter over you. You hope he is there to help wrangle zombies, however your hopes are crushed by hundreds of infected closing in all around you as he sits up in his chopper watching the scene unfold. This is the helicopter event, and it could end your life just as quickly as you started the save. When you first start a save, assuming you started on the default starting day, which is July 9th, you can be visited by the infamous helicopter anytime between July 15th and July 19th. This event only happens once by default, and can be rather difficult to survive if you don't know what to do. The first and possibly only helicopter of your game save will prove problematic since you most likely won't have any skill or weapons to take on the vast number of infected that will close in on your position after the helicopter makes its visit. So to cover what to do before, during, and after the helicopter event, we should talk about the game's helicopter mechanics. And to do this, I'm going to assume that you have your helicopter event set to sometimes or often, as it will also cover players that have it set to only once. Remember that you can change the helicopter events through the Sadistic AI Director tab when setting up a new sandbox game. As stated earlier, the first helicopter can come 6 to 9 days after the game starts, so by default it would come between July 15th and July 19th. For the players such as myself that have helicopter events set to often, after the very first helicopter, they will then come every 7 to 10 days after the previous helicopter. So if your helicopter came July 16th, you should expect another helicopter between July 23rd and July 26th. For those who have it set to sometimes, you'll get the helicopter every 10 to 14 days after your first helicopter. If the helicopter comes on July 16th, you should then expect another visit between July 26th and July 30th. On helicopter day, it will arrive sometime between 9 a.m. and 11 p.m. However, I've never had a helicopter come later than 9 p.m., but it's probably not impossible for it to. Did you know that you can be warned about helicopters the day they will make a visit? Well, you can. First, you need to find the emergency broadcast station. The station is on a random frequency per save, so if you find it on one save, it most likely won't be the same frequency the next save. In order to find it, you need to check the preset stations on radios you discover around the map. When you find a car, hop in and check its radio. You might see the emergency broadcast station in the preset channels. Keep the frequency in mind or write it down because it will tell you at the end of the broadcast if a helicopter is coming by saying air activity detected. The broadcast updates every day at 8 a.m. So when you suspect a helicopter could happen at any time, check every morning at 8 a.m. for the message indicating a helicopter's arrival. When it does, hope you have time to prepare. Remember, the helicopter can come at any hour after 8 a.m. and will arrive on any solid hour. So something like 9 a.m., 10 a.m., 11 a.m. As soon as the hour hits, it could potentially spawn the helicopter. The sound of the helicopter is the loudest noise in the game, as it is louder than the house alarms, emergency sirens, car alarms, horns, and gunshots. Just take a look at this footage of myself in debug mode. I summoned the helicopter with the zombie population map opened, and those white lines you see drawn towards my player is the pathing of the zombies. As you can see, there are a lot of zombies from all around the rendered cell heading towards my location. This is why the helicopter event is very dangerous. So what can we do to survive the helicopter event? There are a couple of ways you could deal with the helicopter, but two choices when it comes down to it: engage it or avoid it. Helicopter day arrives and you're seriously considering engaging it. However, you should slow down and make sure you are prepared. You cannot by any means underestimate a helicopter event. You can have more zombies rain down on you than you thought that would show up and potentially end your run through a nice mauling. Before you engage, ask yourself, is my character in good shape, free from pain and wounds, specifically on the arms and legs, and not exhausted, tired, etc.? Remember, wounds on the limbs affect combat and mobility. These are very important when managing helicopter event. Do I have defenses built around my base that could slow them down or keep them out altogether? Do I have enough weapons to clear hundreds of infected? Do I have a vehicle loaded with supplies if things get ugly? Things can go wrong. Have an escape plan. Play safe, not stupid. Load a duffel bag with food, water, medical supplies, matches or lighters, and weapons. Throw it in the trunk of a vehicle that is in good condition and full of gas. Then put a tent kit and a campfire kit with a few logs and twigs in the back of the vehicle. This is your escape vehicle. Park it a reasonable jogging distance away from your base, so if things go south, you have a way out. If the answer to any of these is a no, then you should consider avoiding it instead. If the answer is a happy yes, then you can move on to engage in the helicopter. If you choose to engage the helicopter, you're letting yourself be tracked by it and attract zombies in a large area around you to your location. I tend to do this after I secure guns and ammo, as it is better to use them against massive amounts of zombies compressed in a horde. Before you engage, you should have defenses built around your base. Some people call it cheap, but I prefer to use the crate fence method that prevents most zombies from breaking it down. However, it is not as cheap as knocking a staircase out with a sledgehammer to make your base impenetrable, since the crate fence wall is not entirely indestructible. That's right, crawlers can still break through, and once they create an opening, the other infected around the walls will flood that spot and rip through the crates. I only use the crate fence walls when I have helicopters set to often, since the event can drag massive hordes in and crawlers can be quite hard to hit when there are a lot of other infected near them. Engaging the helicopter is probably one of the most useful methods of clearing areas out. Once you set up fortifications around your camp, the helicopter can then drag zombies all around your cell to your base. Every time there is a helicopter event, it will drag more and more to you, and once they are dealt with, the area surrounding your base should become a lot safer. You'll know when you've effectively cleared the surrounding area, as you will get a visit from the helicopter and little to no zombies show up. Using the helicopter this way can prove difficult if you choose a bad base location, as zombies' pathing tends to get confused when there are tall fences around, so some might get snagged and left behind. This problem is more abundant in certain areas of Louisville, specifically the southwest corner with all the nice houses. To avoid this, remove parts of the fence so the zombies can get through without issue. The longer the fence, the more pieces of it you should remove. If you either choose to or are forced to avoid the helicopter, there are a couple of ways to do it. Avoiding the helicopter does not mean you aren't at risk, however, as it still may attract zombies to your location, just as not as many as engaging it. To avoid a helicopter, you can use its mechanics against it. When the helicopter shows up, it will search for the player. If the player is outside and exposed, it will then proceed to hover over the player for a period of time, typically a very long time, as it has the survivors in its sight. However, if you cut the line of sight between you and the helicopter either by hiding in a room or in a cluster of trees, the helicopter will then enter search mode and begin looking for you once again. The helicopter will soon leave if it has not spotted the player in some time. That is one way to avoid it. My favorite method is to find a room with no windows and a solid windowless door. I then grab a skill book and read it in the room until the helicopter makes its visit and then leaves. Normally no zombies will show up. However, this isn't always the case and some might still head to you. However, it shouldn't be a horde instead of a small amount of zombies. I do not recommend hiding in trees, as trees are dangerous and can conceal zombies quite easily to the point you won't even know there's a zombie there until you've already been bitten. Another method of avoiding the helicopter is leaving the area completely. If you have a vehicle, drive it far away from your base, preferably somewhere isolated with little to no zombies. After the helicopter makes its visit and leaves, you should be able to drive back to your base and not have to worry about zombies going to your home. This method is super useful for the early days, as the helicopters, prior to being well armed and fortified, can be devastating for a new base and new survivor. So now that you know what a helicopter event is and your choices of dealing with it, what happens when the scary horde shows up at your base? Well, here comes the next section of the guide to explain what you can do. So the helicopter just departed, leaving you overwhelmed on all sides by a horde of the infected piled on your walls, wanting in. What do you do? Well, first, do not panic. If you have proper walls built, you should have some time to make the decision. When dealing with hordes, you have a few options at hand to deal with the situations you find yourself in. The first option, of course, is to fight them as they gather on the walls and kill them before they kill you.
Before they come for us, it's that simple.
This can easily be done if there are a good amount of guns and ammo at your base. Remember, you will most likely be dealing with a thick horde of infected coming to your exact location. Melee weapons can be useful for stragglers, but guns are far more efficient at clearing denser groups safely. If you don't have a good aiming skill level, you can always use a shotgun, as this is the most effective for newer or inexperienced survivors. Be warned, however, as lower aiming levels mean more crawlers, and if you're using the crate fence method, you can make a crawler that is impossible to hit with the amount of infected around it. This crawler will then chew through the fence, allowing the horde to rip your crates apart and get inside your base. If you're overwhelmed and can no longer safely fight back, the next option will help get your base back. Remember, no base is worth your survivor's life. This is why I always recommend an escape vehicle, because you never know when you will need it. It is always better to be homeless than to be dead, am I right? Your next option with dealing with the horde, if option 1 fails, is to drive away most of the infected. I say most because this method will not get every zombie out of your base, but should lessen the density of the remaining infected. So after bailing on your base, entering your escape vehicle and leaving, you want to take your base back. This is how you manage a horde without directly fighting the lot. The escape vehicle you drove away with has a horn, correct? Well, you are going to drive back to your overrun base, lay on that horn, and get as many of the infected out of it and to follow your vehicle. You will then slowly drive away from your base, slow enough so that the infected can keep pace. You shouldn't be driving any more than 5 miles an hour when you're doing this. When they are far enough away, take a loop back to your base and finish clearing the stragglers that broke off from the group. This method can also be used in hordes anywhere in Knox County. However, do be warned that this method is not very efficient in Louisville, as honking your horn will just drag other hordes back to the area you're trying to clear due to the high population of infected that is in the city. Another method you can try if you are indeed a pacifist is to wait it out after you escape. You can always camp elsewhere for a while and wait until the migration mechanic kicks in and disperses a lot of these zombies lingering around your base. This is a method I never really use except for in the CDDA challenge, as that mode is super difficult. Remember, the game has a migration mechanic meant to refill areas of zombies after it has been cleared. Meta events are a major factor in cell migration, as you could imagine, since loud sounds such as gunshots in the distance can draw zombies away. My personal favorite method of moving hordes is through house alarms. This is a great one to use in Louisville, as there are plenty of houses to try to set an alarm off. House alarms are one of the loudest noises in the game. Setting one off within distance of your overrun base will move vast majority of the infected towards the house alarm you just set off. Make sure to take a detour back to your base, and you should have no issue clearing the stragglers that remain. My least favorite method of clearing hordes is using fire. You can easily clear a horde if you throw a Molotov at it when they are clustered and train them around until they burn to ash. I find this method kind of cheap and unnecessarily destructive, as the fire spreads from them to the ground and can burn down your base and make it so that there is nothing to defend. If this is the path you choose, then all the power to you. However, it isn't very hard to deal with them through less destructive means. The last method is another form of noise distraction. If you have a high enough electrical skill, you can craft timed pipe bombs. These things are super loud and can easily draw infected away. If you craft enough, you could have a trail of them on timers that move a large chunk of the horde away from your base. Set the first timer to 60 seconds, then every other bomb after add 25 seconds to it. So the second bomb would be 85 seconds. This would buy you some time to set up a long enough trail so you don't have to worry about the horde spotting you. Just remember where they are headed, as you may encounter groups in the area you move them to. I hope you can make use of this guide and know when a helicopter is coming and how to deal with it when it does. The event will most likely drag in a lot of infected, so you need to be prepared to handle a horde closing in on your position when it does. Remember to always have a way out if things go south, and remember everything I taught you in episode 1 of this guide series on combat. That is all the time that I have to discuss this topic. If any questions need to be answered, please feel free to leave it in the comments. Thank you for joining me, and come back next time for some more Git Guud. If you like this video, drop a like. If you want to keep up with the series, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell if you want, but that is up to you. See you next time.